Hi, and thanks for watching. This is Kale. I'm with NutriVersity, and I'm here to show you about the recipe builder. We're going to start in the recipes page. In this page, you can see in the filter there's an option to only show my recipes. If I click on that, it only shows the recipes that I have put into the system. If I want to add a new recipe, I click Add My Recipe. This takes me to the recipe builder, and here I'm going to tell you the first thing that I like to do is put in a description and set up a few things and hit save. And the reason I like to do this is because later when I go to the recipe listing, I can find it. If I don't put a name in there, it's untitled and it will get confused with the other recipes that I have set up. Now this is still in progress. I'm still working on it. I'm not ready to submit it. I'll cover these other buttons a little bit later in the video. So I hit save and in progress. And by doing this, if I go back to the recipes screen and I click only my recipes, I can see there's my meal. I'm going to hit the pencil, which is only available on recipes that you've entered, so that I can edit it. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the various ingredients. Searching for ingredients has a few tricks to it. You don't want to be too specific. So if I put in tuna fish, for example, it's not going to find anything. But if I go tuna, then I have more options. And if there's too many options, I can say add the word canned, and maybe I even want white. So notice that I don't even put in the whole word white. By doing this, I'm increasing the odds that it's going to find the ingredient that I'm looking for. So I'm going to search for that, canned white tuna in water. And I'm going to tell it I want 3 ounces. Now, I'm also going to come over here and tell it that I want pita bread. I'm going to add that. And I just realized for one pita, 3 ounces maybe isn't the amount. I want 1 can. And I can change that right here in the listing. And it changes it and updates the information over here for me. So I can already see what the nutritional information is. These columns, which I have set for me to carbohydrate, protein, fat, cholesterol, and fiber, are configurable by you. You can change that by going to My Nutrients. We've covered that in more detail in the first video, getting set up with NutriVersity, but you can actually choose which nutrients you care about and which ones you want to show here. So we're not quite done with the ingredients, so I'm going to add a few others. Celery, give it a little bit of crunch. I'm going to say 2 tablespoons of celery. And I'm going to say onion. I want just a little bit of flavor. So I'll say 2 tablespoons of onion. And this is a very dry sandwich at the moment, so I'm going to say mayonnaise. Now I'm going to stop short. I don't have to type the whole thing. In fact, just mayo is going to find the ingredient. I want light, so I'm going to click on light. And I think 2 tablespoons of that would sound good too. A little high on the protein, a little low on the carbs. But that's the nice thing, as you can see, this is the balance ratio. So for those of us who like to follow 40-30-30, we can see that I've got 31% carbs, 38% protein, 31% fat. So maybe 1 can isn't the right measure. Maybe I do want something like 4 ounces. That's better. I like that. All right, now we're going to deal with the time. Active time and total time. Active time is how much time you're going to spend in the kitchen preparing this. Now, doing a fish sandwich, it's going to take maybe 10 minutes. Total time. That is the amount of time from when you first start making the meal to when you actually can sit down and eat it. So with this, it's just 10 minutes. But consider, for example, a casserole. You might go to the kitchen, put it together, take 10 or 15 minutes, put it together, and put it in the oven for half an hour. So your total time in that case would be 40 or 45 minutes. Or another example is a crock pot recipe. You might take only 15 minutes putting the meat and some vegetables in the crock pot, but then you might turn it on and let it cook for 6 hours. Well, your total time at that point would be 6 hours and 15 minutes. This last option is make whole. Just want to encourage you to not check that unless you're absolutely positive that the recipe just doesn't break down into smaller parts. An example of that is So for example, a casserole, you would want to check this as make whole. And the reason is a 4,000 calorie casserole that's designed to go in a 9 by 13 pan, it doesn't make sense to make only 10% of that casserole to serve the person making the meal. And if you remember, NutriVersity wants to scale these recipes. When you click the make whole button, it does not scale them. It will make a whole one, and if that's not enough, it'll tell you to make a double or triple or quadruple batch as necessary. But it won't take a recipe that's marked as make whole and tell you to make a fraction of it. So in this case, for example, if somebody came along and was going to make this meal and they wanted it to be less than the total calories, which it looks like it's right around 300, say they wanted it for 200, it's going to scale these things down. By clicking make whole, it would not scale them down. Sandwiches are fine to make partial, so we're going to go ahead and leave that unchecked. Again, when in doubt, leave it unchecked. So the next step is entering the instructions. We want to make sure that the instructions that we enter represent all of the ingredients that are here, and we want to make sure that the instructions do not include any ingredients that aren't listed up here. I believe that covers everything. The ingredients are not in the same order as the instructions. Notice these grab handles, we can actually sort the ingredients to be in the same order as the instructions. I think that's a lot more useful for the person preparing the recipe. So I'm going to change these around so that they match. The next thing we do is we tell it we're going to chop the onion and the celery, so I'm going to get them up there, and then the pita is the last thing. Great. Now makes information, very useful information. We want recipes in the system to have useful makes information. So much easier when you're looking at a recipe if it says that you are supposed to have, say, 2 cups of a soup. So whenever possible, please include good makes information. So in this case, it's pretty clear that this recipe makes 2 pita halves. So I'm going to put that in there. We can save this in progress. If I weren't done, I might do that so that I could come back to it and work on it later. I can save it as private. So what that's going to do is it's going to save that. It's going to make it available to me in my menus. I can use it and view it and include it in my menus and shopping lists. But nobody else that is a member of NutriVersity would get to see it. Or I can click Save and Share. And I'm going to encourage you to do that. If you have a recipe that's a family favorite or something like that, you hit Save and Share, and it submits it to NutriVersity to be shared with other members. Keep in mind when we view this recipe, it's just like all other recipes in the system. It's going to scale that recipe to our calorie requirements. So if I view it as a snack, it is no longer using the same amounts that we put into the recipe. It's telling us different amounts to scale it to our target of 865 calories. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please, we'd love to hear from you. Look for this black support and feedback button at the bottom of most screens inside of NutriVersity. If you click that, it pops up. We'd ask you to put in your comments or questions here. By using this system, you provide us with a lot of useful information about where you're at in NutriVersity and what you're doing so that we can be most helpful to you.